Oh my God. This is round 2 of the World Chess Championship, and we have a decisive result already. Today, Ding Liren was playing with the white pieces against Jan Nepomniachtchi with the black pieces, and this game was a thriller. Let's get right into it. So, in game 2, one of the things that people talk about a lot is openings. In the World Chess Championship, the openings matter so much because there's so much that goes into the preparation of those games behind the scenes. So in the second game, we see d4 being played by Ding, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5. This is all normal until Ding played the move h3, which is a very unusual move, and this could have been one of the openings that Hikaru plays in his disrespectful speedrun, where he plays disrespectful openings. This could be one of those. He just plays h3 as if all of his pieces have been developed, and he just plays h3 like it's nothing. So after this, the c4 pawn was captured, and here e3 was played. This position has almost never been seen before, which is crazy. We already out of book in move 5, and Jan had to take care of the situation all by himself. As we know, Richard Rapport is one of the seconds of Ding Liren, so there are very high suspicions that this comes out of the book of Richard Rapport. c5 was played, attacking the center, of course. Bishop takes the pawn back. This setup is really common for black, as black is preparing the move b5 to develop the bishop to b7, and then after that the knight goes to d7 or to c6, and black has a really healthy development on the queen side. Now short castle, knight c6, knight c3, simply developing pieces. Here comes b5, bishop slides back to d3, bishop b7, and black gets quite a lot of play very early on in the game. a4, trying to put pressure on this pawn over here on the queen side. b4, of course, knight goes to e4 towards the center, which is really interesting to see because most of the times we don't really see the knight jump to e4 like that. Usually there's a pawn there. Of course, my fellow e4 players, we're in shambles, but it's okay. Knight a5 was played. Black is not capturing the knight on e4. Black is asking the opponent, well, if you want to trade, we can trade. So now white has the option to either take on f6 or on c5. White decided to capture on f6. And afterwards, in the interview, Ding did mention that he did consider the move knight takes c5, but what he didn't expect after knight takes f6, the reason why he liked this more is that he didn't expect g takes f6 at all. He expected that, as any normal human being usually would play, the normal move here, the logical move, is queen takes f6. Simply capturing back with the queen instead of the pawn, because if you take back with the pawn, you're simply weakening your pawn structure by a lot. And it's really hard to see what the upsides are for black here by doing this. So naturally, we take back with the queen over here. And it makes sense that Ding expected it. He mentioned that he was planning to play e5, bishop g5, e5, and so on. And that looks, of course, really aggressive, and it has a lot of prospects there. However, Jan did not take back with the queen, but with the pawn. Now comes e4, trying to control the center, and here comes c4, attacking the bishop on d3 and gaining so much space on the queen side. Bishop goes back to c2, queen c7, stopping the bishop from developing to f4, bishop d2. Trying to attack the pawn, even though it's already defended. You have to develop bishop somewhere. Rook g8. The rook is now controlling the g file where the king is situated. And at the same time, it looks pretty dangerous over here for white already. Rook goes to c1, trying to develop the pieces, of course. Long castle. Jan is fearless. Instead of even keeping the king in the center, which may even seem safer at this point, he just goes long castle as if nothing's happening over there. Bishop d3, because, well, the pawn is pinned on c4. We would like to put pressure on this pawn here with the white pieces, because after queen e2, maybe you get to capture this pawn, and that would help white a lot, because this pawn is quite nerve-wracking. King b8 was played, trying to step out of that pin, because as I mentioned, the idea that queen e2 tries to pick up that pawn on c4. The thing is, after queen e2, there's c takes d3 all of a sudden, and now if you take the queen, black will capture the queen on e2, and rook takes c7 is this time not a check. So for that reason, this whole plan doesn't work anymore. White has to resort to other plans and continues here with rook e1. And here black played a really strong move, f5. Ding said in the interview that this was the critical point. He praised Jan for making this move, as it is a really strong move, and it basically destroys White's position altogether, because this pawn is holding the position together. It is controlling the center, of course, and stops his bishop from being very active across the diagonal. Because once this pawn is gone, there's so much trouble happening over here. So he said this was a really good move. And basically after this position, things started to go downhill very quickly. Bishop c2 is played, knight c6 simply goes back because the knight doesn't have anything to do there anymore and is now attacking the pawn on d4. Bishop g5 trying to stop the rook on the g file altogether, attacks the rook. Now naturally you just simply move the rook, right? Because it's under attack, or maybe bishop e7, try to trade off the bishops. But Jan does something incredible here. He sacrifices the rook. Rook takes g5 was played, a brilliant move, because after knight takes g5, the knight comes in on d4 because the knight got distracted towards g5, and all of a sudden it is a tragic situation for White. Queen h5 was played, trying to create some activity, of course. f6 attacking the knight on g5 that barely has any squares left, still is able to go back to f3. The knight captures on c2, rook takes c2, bishop takes e4, and look what a beautiful position black has. The pair of bishops, all those pawns scattered over the board, but not too scattered to not have an advantage like that, because those pawns are going to move forward. Those pawns over here moving forward, and White's pieces do not have anything to do over here. They're just stuck. Rook d2 is played, bishop d6, not even trading rooks. King h1, you have to make a move, right? c3 is played, removing the pawn forward. B takes c3, b takes c3, rook d4, c2. I mean, black is simply promoting that pawn. Queen h6, and now e5. And this was the moment that Ding thought it's over, it's done, and he resigned. Jan Nepomniachtchi wins game 2 in the World Chess Championship. A phenomenal result despite being out of book very early on. He didn't know very well what to do in the opening. Of course, he knows what to do more or less, but he was caught by surprise with the great prep on Ding's side. But unfortunately for Ding, he was not able to make use of this situation. He was not able to build up on this, and it's even worse for him since he was playing the white pieces. Usually when you're playing with the white pieces, that's when you're starting to create new possibilities, new openings, ideas. And he was able to confuse Jan for a moment, but Jan simply played a perfect game and Ding collapsed very early on. Of course, this is only round 2. We still have many games ahead of us. The first person to reach 7.5 points wins the match. Do you think that Ding is capable of making a comeback in this match? Or do you think it's already over and Jan is going to win this match for sure? Let me know down below in the comments what you thought of this recap and what your thoughts are on the match so far. We've only had 2 games so far, but I'm really excited to see what the players will bring on for the next games, as the players are, of course, getting rested. They have a rest day tomorrow, so there will be lots of time to analyze the situation and prepare even more for the next days.